Welcome to Mystic Conversations with Kamish, where we journey into the realms of the unseen, the mystical, and the magical. Kim Etherington and Reverend Michelin Walton will be your guides on an exploration of the esoteric and the extraordinary. Each week, we'll dive deep into the mysteries of the universe, modern spiritual practices, and the profound experiences of those who walk the mystic path. Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just curious about the mystical world, Mystic Conversations is here to enlighten, inspire, and ignite your inner magic. So light your candles, open your mind, and let's embark on this enchanted adventure together. Well, good afternoon, Mystic Avenue family.
Hello, and other family members.
Oh, yes, everybody.
The world globally.
The
we
universe.
Must be global.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely worldwide by now.
Oh, yes, we gotta be.
Is this our fourth episode or a third?
Fourth.
Cool.
Fourth.
Okay, so this is our fourth episode.
You are?
I'm Kim.
And I'm Mish.
And together
we're Kamish.
So, welcome to the next 30 minutes of our lives. We
Yes.
appreciate you showing up.
We really
Or perhaps you're watching this later as a recorded broadcast. But we're live today on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Wow,
So
that's
thanks.
That's a lot of places.
I know. I don't even know how it happens.
How
It's
do
just
we do that?
magic. Well, we do it with the person in the control
Oh,
booth.
yes, our control
We'd like to
booth.
welcome Samantha back to the control booth.
Yes,
Samantha,
yes.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm having a really good time.
We missed her last week, but we did it. Yeah.
We struggled through.
We
yes.
had to do this all on our own, but
Yeah,
we
we
got there.
Yeah,
We
we
were
did.
talking about myths and
Misconceptions
misconceptions
of
about
Mediumship.
mediumship, which brings me into Full Moon Medium. There's still some tickets left. It is this Sunday.
This Sunday, because it's on the,
Full Moon.
hence the name, Full Moon Medium. So
Yeah, and it's going to be actually the inaugural. Why can't I say that
that's
word?
a really hard word to
Inaugural.
say. Inaugural.
Well, it'll be the
First
opening.
time.
It'll be the first time in the new space, which is super exciting.
Oh,
So
yes.
if you haven't got your tickets yet, you can get them on Eventbrite, Mystic Avenue.
Well, you can buy them at the store. You could call in.
Mhm.
You could send us a private message. You could email money transfer, or you can buy them on Eventbrite.
Mhm.
Those are all the locations.
Yeah. Doors
Or-
open at 12:30, so come on in. The event will start promptly at 1.
And there will be tickets at the door.
There will be tickets.
Assuming
at the
there's
door.
tickets at the door, there will be tickets at the door.
Mhm.
Okay.
We're super excited. I'm
We're-
excited.
I'm really excited too.
Yeah.
So the new space that Michelin was referencing is the space next door that we also took over. Quick renovation this week. We're almost there. We'll certainly be ready for Sunday. So that space is in addition to our current space. We're not moving over there, but that's where we'll be having more of our group events. But also important, it is our yoga and wellness studio. And if you haven't visited our website yet, please do, mysticavenue.ca. Click on the yoga tab. You'll see all of the classes that we're offering, and you can register for those. There's a free mums and baby stretch and yoga. So, Samantha, can you tell us about the you know what I'm saying?
Sure, Kim. On Wednesdays, we are going to have a parent baby yoga. And that is where parents can come and do some yoga, and they can bring their baby aged 0 to 3. And there will be toys for the baby to play with, and parents can meet and interact. And it's a super fun time. And it's free. And it's Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m.
And who's teaching that?
The teacher is me, Sam Tukalik, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm very excited.
Yeah.
We are very
So there you
excited.
go. And you need to register, even though it's free. We need to know how many people are coming and so forth.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And I think we already have people sign up
Oh,
for
we
the
do.
classes.
yeah,
so
we absolutely do. So,
So,
yay, yoga.
Yes, yay,
Yay,
yoga.
And yoga is actually really in line with our topic for today.
And what is our topic today?
Our topic for today is spirituality.
Spirituality, which is interesting because we were talking prior to this,
Like we do.
because that's why we're here, because we love talking.
Yeah.
And spirituality is it's so vast and different and broad and expensive. And I just wanted to read something that I read. It really sits with me in and around spirituality. Spirituality exists wherever we grapple with the issues of how our lives fit in to the greater scheme of things. We encounter spiritual issues every time we wonder where the universe comes from, why we are here, or what happens when we die. We also move into spirituality when we become moved by values such as beauty, love, creativity, and when these things seem to reveal a meaning or a power beyond our visible world. An idea or practice is spiritual when it reveals our personal desire to establish a felt relationship with the deepest meanings or powers governing our life.
I like it.
I
Pretty
like that
inclusive,
too.
Yeah,
And I like it too.
that's very inclusive.
And I like it too. Yes.
So, the topic of spirituality on some level can sometimes overlap with the concept of organized religion, for instance.
For sure.
So I think, for most people, what they find is they're born into a family unit. That family unit may have a connection to an organized religion or may not, like may have no connection to any kind of religion or spirituality. But if they're born into something that, people are practicing a particular religion, then that religion is typically taught to the child.
It's passed on.
It's
so
passed on. It's like,
ancestor to ancestor.
here's your box.
Here's
take
what we're
it.
doing. Here's what
This
we're
is
doing
what
here.
we do, and go ahead and do that. And I think what happens is when people start to become older, and I know, and I'll talk a little bit about my own personal experience, but when you kind of reach that age maybe where you're having children or you're becoming an adult, and you start to ask those universal questions like you read there, and you start to explore those ideas, you may actually, well, now I'm going to turn to that religion, right? Because now I'm interested in it. And so
I need something to help me. I need some support.
Exactly.
I need, what am I doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
And you ask those questions, and then people turn to that religion that maybe was handed to them through their family unit and find it doesn't resonate. Or maybe if it does, that's great. Then they're on that path.
Yes.
But if they get on that path and they find it doesn't resonate, then they're like, oh, I guess I'm just not a spiritual person or a religious person.
And then they just pull the chute.
And that's it. And then pull the chute. Okay.
Just pull the chute.
Pull the chute. That's it. It's over.
That's it. I'm not spiritual, so well.
I'm done.
Now what am I going to do?
And I know that for me, my kind of personal path, the way that it happened was, I think it was after the birth of my first child, I became very interested in the concept of, well, what happens after we die and all those things. And I remember saying to my dad, I think that we should start going to church, right? And he's like, okay. My dad was raised going to church, and so a Christian faith of some type. So I'm like, let's go to church. And so we went to a United Church in Ajax. I think it was on Church Street, if I recall. And I can't remember exactly how many times I went. It was definitely a handful of times, not more than 10 for sure.
Yeah.
And it didn't connect. But my desire for it to connect was there. I was seeking something. So from there, I started to explore other paths. And I was like, okay, well, so what I didn't do is I didn't just pull the chute.
You went somewhere else. Some people do, though. Some people, there's an all or nothing type of energy around it.
So I started to explore other things, and I went down a number of different paths. And I think my spirituality has evolved over the years to be called many different things. I would just label it as spiritual today. I wouldn't have a particular label for it. There might have been a time in my past where I would say I was Wiccan or I was pagan, but now I just consider myself spiritual in my foundations.
And you'll hear that a lot in conversations in and around, I'm sure all of you out there in TV land have heard that I'm spiritual, not religious, or I'm religious, not spiritual.
Yeah.
And I think with spirituality, you don't necessarily need to be one or the other, because again,
or you can be both.
Or you
Yeah.
And you were talking about some of them overlap. I think for me, the idea of spirituality is there's a freedom to choose what feels right in that certain time, space, reality. You were talking about, you decided to go to church. I've also gone to church. I've done services. I did a service once. It was a celebration of life, and it was a combination of a more religious service and a spiritual service. And I really enjoyed the preacher. The preacher would share the words from the book. However, how she presented it was really beautiful, because she said, if these words resonate with you, pull them in close to your heart. There's the love. And if they do not resonate with you, just allow them to wash over. So that is a time when religion and spirituality can sort of work really well together. And I think when we're talking about the difference between religion and spirituality, sometimes people come at it from very opposing sides. There's extremes on both sides.
Oh, there is
There's
absolutely, yeah.
extremes on both sides. But what do you think that the difference would be for you between if somebody said you're saying I'm spiritual, well, why aren't you religious? Or what's the difference for you?
Right.
Where does that come from?
I think that word freedom
Yeah.
is ultimately the biggest part of that. So for me, when I started to reach out for a meaning in some way, and I went to, the closest organized religion that I was familiar with, the parts that didn't resonate with me were the things that were anti-freedom. So I think that if we look at the top 5 organized religions in the world, they all start at the same place, right? Which is love,
sure.
right? They start here,
Love,
and there's this experience of love for
love.
thy neighbor, love for your fellow man,
For sure.
compassion,
Yeah.
acceptance, non-judgment, all of those things, right? That's all good stuff.
Mhm.
And then I felt like as I moved kind of through that love door, then I started to kind of run into the scripture, the doctrine, the dogma, all that stuff. And that stuff created static for me. I was like, wait a minute. And certainly as a queer woman, obviously anything that offers condemnation to queer people, I'm probably going to be somewhat opposed to, I would think.
Well, can't imagine you'd like that too much.
Not too
would you?
much. And then as you move even deeper into it, now we get to the condemnation and the judgment and the
It just doesn't feel
eternal damnation.
Mhm.
And then when you go all the way out the other side, you run into extremism, right? So I think at the face of organized religion, I think they all start in such a beautiful spot. And I think that's where they overlap. Spirituality starts in that love spot, right? And that there's either love or the absence of love.
Mhm.
Those are the two things.
I agree.
And I think that you can be a member of an organized religion and very spiritual, and that exists at the same time. There can be slight overlaps, and there can be absolute opposition. It can be either way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to the freedom. I know I've walked the Camino many times, and there's lots
Tell
of.
people what the Camino is in case they don't know.
Oh, thank you, Kim, Kamish. The Camino is a very long walk. I think we might have talked about that before. But the Camino is a very long walk from. Well, I started in France and ended up in Spain. It started off as a pilgrimage. It started off as a pilgrimage to St. James. So there was a lot of prayer, a lot of religious content. However, for me, it was more of a spiritual walk. One time I did the walk, it was to grieve my dad's passing. The other time it was just sort of personal growth. And you saw many different people on many different paths. And for me, there wasn't a hesitation to go into the church because I'm not religious. I was drawn to certain churches. I went in there and enjoyed a beautiful Gregorian monks chanting. Oh my gosh, that was absolutely delicious. So there was lots of opportunities there for me to have different experiences. And I think, again, the difference, we're not trying to say one is better than the other. It's just what is working for you. And I believe it's in the time-space reality. Where are you on your journey? We have all started from the place of love. We've all started from the place of love. It's had shifts and changes, and then we decide this works for me, this does not work for me, and that's okay. I think what we want to get to is that there's movement. There's constant movement. The only constant is change. What looked really appealing to you here perhaps might not be here, and that's okay.
When you were talking about walking the Camino and that whole process and that becomes a spiritual event, it becomes a spiritual event not because of where you were and not because what you're doing with your body, but because of the intention you laid while doing it.
Exactly.
Right. And that is where spirituality, that is the beginning of it, right? So you can have a spiritual experience anywhere. It doesn't have to be a sacred church or a temple or a mosque. That's not necessary, or a certain part of the world. That's another thing I like about spirituality is that concept of freedom, that the sacred, the divine, and the spiritual exist everywhere all at once, all the time.
Yes.
And
anywhere,
all the time.
Yeah.
I think about some of my earlier spiritual experiences that I don't even know if at the time I was really recognizing them as such. I have a very strong connection to labyrinths. I really resonate. Most of the homes that I've lived in have had labyrinths in them that I've installed, including my current one. And the very first labyrinth I walked, I remember it was on October 31st, and I forget the year, but I'm going to guess it was in the late 90s. And it was a beautiful sunrise walk in a farmer's field with this labyrinth.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very sacred, beautiful experience that I have built on the whole time. That was after I went to church that time. But see, that's where I ended up in the farmer's field in the labyrinth. This was where I was more suited to be.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
It's what resonated with me. So I think freedom, personal expression, and I think when people engage their personal expression, they're authentic. Right? If I'm standing in whatever space, singing the song I'm being told to sing, doing the prayer I'm reading from the book, is not authentically me. So engaging in spirituality that comes from my soul, that
from inside, yeah,
my organic space, right, where that comes from, then I feel that that's powerful for me.
I agree. I agree. Now, how do you think we could begin your spiritual journey or practice? For anybody watching us, where did your spiritual journey or practice begin? I feel that I was born into a family that was more spiritual, so I could explore that. And then the groups of people, the friends that I hung around or had experiences with, were more geared to learning spirituality, workshops, sound healing, meditations. So that was sort of a natural progression for me. I will tell you, for my spiritual journey and practice, apart from the learning for myself, I went on a little kick where I was an energy junkie. I needed to find out about energy, so I took quantum touch and EFT and Reiki and Qigong, and I wanted to know how energy moved around. That lasted for probably maybe 3 to 5 years, where everything I did was just all based on energy, and then it branched out, and then I had that information and I moved on from there. But I think there's a lot of different activities that we can move into, be a part of, search for, especially with technology now. I mean, everything's on Google.
So available.
It's very available to us.
I think, it's interesting. So you're talking, both you and I have been talking about spirituality, and it seems to me that we're using very individualized language too. We're talking about our own process. We're not talking a lot about groups, but yet both of us also do engage in group activities and see the power in that.
Yes.
Again, in a contrast from spirituality to organized religion basically develops a club and a clubhouse, right? And you join the club.
Yes.
Whereas spiritual, well, I mean, people pray on their own and stuff too. I'm not suggesting that they don't, but we're talking, a lot of the language we're using is very individual focused.
And it's interesting, and I think you and I have talked before. You're very earth-based, and I'm very airy-fairy. And there was talk about, for me, most of my learning comes when I drop down onto the planet and somebody gives me a perception like yourself. I have some other friends that are very earth-based. That's where I do most of my learning. I'm very comfortable floating around in the ethers. I'm a starseed, so a lot of that, it just comes very natural to me. And I yearn for expansion and personal growth, and that comes from something that perhaps I'm not super comfortable with.
Right. That's where growth does come
That's
from.
where growth does come from.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to step into different places.
Yeah.
We were talking definitely about it didn't resonate or didn't feel good. But we're not saying go in and be uncomfortable. What we're saying is have those experiences. And if you're in this spiritual mindset, you know the difference between sort of being actively involved or just holding sacred space. Okay, I'm here for a reason. I have the tools. I know I can fill myself with pink light or green healing light, or maybe send out light to somebody else. I'm not just listening to what somebody's telling me to do, and this is what it needs to look like. This is how it has to feel. I'm having my own experience within that grander experience.
Right, yeah. And I think if you do have a spiritual path that is very unique and that you feel isolated, that you can't find other people of the same belief system, I would think there are other people that share pieces of your belief system. And it's those pieces. And one of the things when I think about pieces of spirituality that I see common, I think in almost every path, is meditation.
Exactly.
And whether you're calling that prayer or you're calling it meditation or whatever name you have for it, intention, focus, and even for people who don't believe in a higher power, right? You don't have to
Which is also a
believe in
belief,
full
by the
God.
way. Which
It
is
is a
also
belief. Yeah, it's a belief as well.
I don't believe, but you believe that you don't believe.
Right.
So that's a belief.
That's a belief, exactly. So that doesn't mean that the concepts of why are we here, how can I be a good person, how can I be of service are off the table for those people.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that at all. It just means it's a different context.
Mhm.
So I was actually getting to meditation, but meditation. So meditation and spirituality really do kind of go hand in
Hand
hand.
in hand.
How do you use meditation in your life? Tell me about
So
your
for me,
process.
meditation and I, with clients, I think sometimes people come in and it's an automatic. Well, I don't meditate. I don't know how to. I have monkey mind. So there are just so many different ways of meditating. I've gone through ebbs and flows personally with myself where I'm just all into the guided meditations. All I want to do is press that button and sit down there and float off to another space and time.
Mm-hmm.
And through practice, and we did talk about practice, which we'll touch on, is I realized that meditation can come anywhere at any time. It's just about a focus intention. I have recently started tuning my water every morning. I put a little mat down, I fill up the water, I put a little bit of salt in there because that holds the memory, rub my hands together, and I attune my water. And so the days that perhaps I'm up and out the door, I still have those few moments in a meditation practice where I'm sitting down, attuning my water, drinking it, and then I can carry on it. I think we get caught in how long it has to be, what it needs to look like, where it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for me as well, maybe there's sometimes that I've been driving and the traffic is just a lot and I need to relax. Sometimes I'll just pull off to the side and do some deep breathing, and that's a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Just for now, I'm just going to relax. I'm just going to breathe. I'm just going to get there.
Right.
So it comes in all different shapes and forms. And you teach meditation and you offer
I
a
do.
lot of meditations. What does
Yeah.
that look like for you?
Well, I mean, I've done a lot of different types of meditation
Mhm.
like you, and I mean, guided meditation is one thing. Walking a labyrinth is a form of
Mhm.
meditation. It's
Yeah.
a moving meditation. I would imagine walking the Camino is also, at times, a very meditative process. So it's any time that you make that time for a contemplative, quiet mind, removing yourself from the external distractions of life. So that can be guided meditation. It can be through music. It
Yes.
could be through movement. Prayer is meditation.
Yep.
It's just another way of doing it. One thing that I know that you do that is, and when we're talking about spiritual practices along the line of meditation, using intention is blessing your food before you eat it.
Yes.
What goes on for you when you're doing that? Like, what is the actual
So
practice
for me
that you're doing?
so I've spent some time. I led retreats in India, and I just noticed that practice, and it just really
Other people were
doing it. It was resonating with me. I asked them, what are you doing? And they're like, we're blessing our food. And it's interesting because me going
Such a
in,
good idea.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy you.
I'm going to copy you. I just rub my hands together and it just gratitude. We talked about
Right.
gratitude, how powerful that was. That
Yeah.
can be meditative. Thank you very much for this food that's nourishing my body, bringing vitamins, and it doesn't take too long. But rub the hands together and just give thanks.
Focus your intention.
Focus intention. That is a meditation.
That is a spiritual practice.
That is a spiritual practice.
That is a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
So meditation, blessing your food, blessing your water. What else? What other spiritual
Oh,
practices?
grounding.
Grounding.
I know
Oh,
when
yes,
I'm in
that's a good-
Canada, boy, I'm running around on that grass. Sometimes I'm rolling around on the grass and touching the grass. It's just sort of grounding to Mother Earth, hugging trees.
Mhm.
And if we're looking at spirituality, I think we talked about it's like really going inside. I actually got this tattoo in India, and it says everything you need is already inside you. And we've become such a culture of, hey Alexa, hey Google, what's happening?
Yeah.
And although we said there's lots of information out there which can become helpful, the best meter, the best guide you have is your higher self. The best
Mhm.
meter and guide is right in here. Does this feel good? Yes, I'm going to do it. Does this sit with me? No. Okay, I'm going to choose a different path.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So any of those things that align with the spiritual practice, whether they're based in meditation, in prayer, in sacred space, and really following that individual meter that inner guidance on what works for you.
At that certain time,
Yeah, 'cause
space,
it shifts and
reality.
changes all the time.
It totally shifts and changes. Anything from the control room? How we
Control room,
doing?
do you have anything to
Control-
say?
Control room to Major Tom. Come in.
Smith is going to have something to say here. Just one
Sis-
second. She's
we can
thinking
see.
about
We
it.
need to clean the. Oh.
I was just wondering, how can spirituality help in dealing with life's challenges and stress?
Oh, yeah,
wow.
yeah, that's true. How can that? I don't
Especially
know.
these
No.
days.
I think that's when I think.
Look at us.
No, I'm trying to come up with a way to say it. So to me, a spiritual practice at a time of stress in your life, whether it's from a trauma and experience,
Mhm.
is a lifeline. It's hope.
It is.
It is a place where you go into yourself, and I can't imagine actually experiencing some of life's difficult times. And everyone has them. I've had them. You've had them.
Yeah.
We've all had them. Without that,
Tools, the spiritual tools.
I mean,
the
without
tools.
it, I don't know where. Without the contemplative process that allows me to step away from it and say, I'm going to be okay.
Mhm.
This is going to be all right, even though it's a shitstorm now.
Yes.
Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. So I think spiritual practices bring hope at times when we feel hopeless.
And I think the wish for me, and I know you as well, Kim, is to bring these practices into your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you practice, it comes that you don't have to ask for it when something just goes wrong. It's just part of everyday life. So when something goes wrong and you have those tools, it's not as traumatic for you because you already have those tools. And these simple things, jump into workshops, jump into calling in like-minded people so you can have these conversations. There's some people that come into the store last week talking about fairies. I love fairies. And the fact that they were open and honest and vulnerable to say, hey, I saw a fairy and I believe in the fairies in the face. Some of you may, some may not, but safe places. Spirituality to me offers safe places to have conversations, a safe place to open up and share.
Mm-hmm.
And that is super powerful for me. I'm not confined. I'm not saying what somebody told me to say. I'm saying what's inside. I'm saying what comes from the heart. And
creative,
and
yes.
I feel safe doing that.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we were talking about spirituality and how it can be helpful at the stressful times, from the science perspective. So when you were saying, if you practice all these things, if they become your practice, if you do these things daily, then when you need them, they're easier to call on. And really, it's about developing those neural pathways, right? So those neural pathways, I know that I can have an experience where I'll do this counting backwards, or I'll do this experience, and I will feel the same every time. And that is there because I've practiced it.
Yes.
So that's why having those things ahead of time makes life, at the more trying times of life, you have a
And
path.
that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
Because then the people around us, then it becomes the ripple effect, the calming effect. I mean, how many times people just say, just breathe.
Yeah, just breathe.
That's spiritual.
Just breathe.
Just breathe.
That's a great Pearl Jam song,
Did you want to sing next time?
I would love to sing a Pearl Jam song.
Really? Maybe next time.
Dory just had a comment.
Oh, Dory.
I think her Google responded to you, and Google said, "Not much. How are you?"
Oh.
Probably when you said, "Hey, Google."
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical.
Thank you for popping in there, Dory. I know that Dory has some.
I'm just singing that Pearl Jam
That's
song in my head now.
So next week,
Go for it.
Kim is going
I don't
to
remember it all.
sing a
I'd
Pearl
sing it.
Jam song.
Well, that one,
That's humming. Well, humming is also spiritual. Humming
very
is
spiritual,
because it's a vibration.
Chanting, mantra,
humming. There's lots of things. Spirituality. We could
I'm a
talk.
lucky man to count on two hands the ones I love.
What's happening right now?
That's the
Is
song,
is that Pearl Jam?
That's
Sounds like a country song.
That is called Just Breathe. Jam. That's not a country
It
song.
sounded
Pearl
like
Jam.
you threw a horse and a bottle of whiskey in that, and that's a country song.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Anyways, just
Okay.
breathe.
Just breathe.
Just-
Oh well.
Good.
So next week we'll be touching on meditation.
Oh,
Your
meditation.
favorite. Your
Yeah.
favorite.
Okay, so please join us next week when we talk about meditation, one of my favorite topics. But remember this week that the universe is always listening. Be careful what you say. Hey, Google.
Hey Google. And join us again next week at 1 p.m. for another spiritual journey. Until then, stay enlightened, stay connected.
Namaste.
Namaste. Just breathe.
Da, 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 da.